Thank you everyone for joining. Before we get started, I'd like to pay my respects to the Australian First Peoples, their elders past, present and future, and to extend that respect to any First Nations peoples joining us today. We're going to explore the critical role of UX design in delivering successful enterprise digital solutions. And who's going to be doing that? Well, I'm glad you asked. We have two experts with us today, Osama and Robbie. And Osama is a tech lead and an OutSystems trainer at Phoenix DX. He's a senior OutSystems tech lead, certified OutSystems trainer, OutSystems ambassador based in Sydney. As an OutSystems enthusiast and advocate, his passion for low-code development and the digital disruption it achieves motivates him to lead small and large development teams to deliver enterprise-grade projects for clients in multiple domains. I feel small and feel like I'm going to learn a lot from Osama already. And then Robbie is also from Phoenix DX. He's a senior UX research and design person. And so Robbie is a seasoned designer with diverse experience across IoT, fintech, social networking, and fashion. Specializing in UX research and design, Robbie combines design, technology, and data-driven insights to create user-friendly digital interfaces that meet business objectives. He focuses on delivering clients meaningful and tangible results. So without any further ado, I would like to hand you over to our experts, starting with Osama. Over to you, Osama.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stuart, for the introduction. Thank you all for joining us today in this user group. It's a bit of a special one today because we're focusing on an area which we should be focusing on a little bit more, and we should be highlighting a little bit more. As developers, we usually, like to just go in, start developing, write code, put our systems applications together without sometimes considering some of the other really important parts which go into delivering an enterprise digital solution, which is the UX and the UI. So what I wanted to start off with today is something called design system. Now, this session is going to be split into two primary sections. The first one is going to be this one here, design systems, talking about what a design system is, why is it important for us developers and technical audience. And then also after this section, we're going to jump into more of a discussion around UX and also the importance of UX, where did it originate from, and why we should considering a lot of those UX practices and activities in our delivery processes, and that's going to be led by Robbie. So start off with the design system. Now, I would not give what design system is justice as much as my fellow colleague here, Matt Holohan, which is, I think I saw him pop up, join into the chat somewhere. So hey Matt, hope you are feeling better, mate. So what I'm going to do is, just before I start defining what a lifestyle guide is, I wanted to let Matt steal the show a little bit and walk us through it real quick in this short video, and then I'll jump back into this.
In today's digital world, designing products with a user-centered approach is crucial for businesses to succeed. And one way to achieve this is through a design system. So what is a design system? For those developing applications on the OutSystems platform, you may already be familiar with the concept of a design system. A design system is a set of guidelines, standards, and principles that unify a company's design language and create a cohesive user experience across all their products. In OutSystems, we refer to this as a lifestyle guide. An OutSystems lifestyle guide is a useful tool for creating and maintaining a consistent design system. It helps teams improve collaboration between designers and developers, reducing development time and maintaining a consistent design language over time. Design systems include things like typography, color schemes, icons, and other visual elements that are used to build digital products. Now, let's discuss some of the benefits of having a design system. Firstly, consistency. A design system ensures that all products of a company have a consistent look and feel, which makes it easier for users to navigate and interact with them. Secondly, productivity. A design system creates a set of guidelines for both designers and developers, which aids in their productivity. It provides them with predefined design elements that can be reused and customized, allowing them to focus on solving design challenges unique to each project. And lastly, scalability. A design system makes it easier for companies to scale their products. As they introduce new features or expand into new markets, they can simply add or modify the existing design elements in their design system instead of starting from scratch. Let me give you a simple example of the design to development workflow with and without a design system in place. Without a design system, a designer may create a button with a custom style and send it to a developer to build. The developer may have to spend time recreating the style and code, resulting in inconsistencies if they're not exact. With the design system, the designer can use a pre-built button component from the design system, and the developer can simply use the code provided in the design system, ensuring consistency and saving time. So we can see how this can help our designers and our developers. But what about the organization and its products as a whole? To give you a little more insight, I'll tell you about one of our clients. This particular client was struggling with scaling their products, having multiple products that looked and felt different. This caused confusion among their users. Moreover, designers were spending a lot of time creating design elements from scratch, which was affecting their productivity. We suggested that they create a design system, and we helped them to do it. We worked to define the design elements such as typography, color schemes, and icons, and we created a library of these elements. We also created a set of guidelines and standards for the usage of these elements. The results were remarkable. After implementing the design system, our clients' products now have a consistent look and feel, which has significantly improved the user experience. Users no longer have to learn a new design language when they use different products from the same company, making it easier and more intuitive for them to navigate and complete their desired actions. And most importantly, they've been able to scale their products, as they can now add new features and products without having to start from scratch. So, in conclusion, a design system is a crucial tool for businesses that want to provide a consistent and user-centered experience across their products. It can help companies to be more efficient, scalable, and ultimately more successful. We hope this video has helped you understand what a design system is and how it can benefit your business.
In summary, a design system is an approach where designers and developers work on to ensure that whatever the designers are putting together or designing at Figma or whatever tool they might be using is completely aligned with what the developers are building, ensuring there's an extremely coherent approach of how we build screens in our systems. And a lot of the times, if these standards are not defined in our project, we tend to very quickly deviate away from the intended designs, and the end result wouldn't be as expected or as the customers envisioned, because remember, the customers build their expectations when it comes to UI based on the designs they see. That's the purpose of a design system. So ensuring we have the system in place where we can ensure that our applications are being built pixel perfect based on the designs being proposed. Now, how do we put together these design systems? That's what I want to walk through with you today. Of course, there's one key component inside a design system which we as developers would be familiar with, which is the lifestyle guides. And if you've worked with OutSystems previously, you might be familiar with the term lifestyle guide. But before we even get into that, and I'm going to actually demo a lifestyle guide at the end of this section, I want to talk about the fundamentals of how we put together a design system and in return a style guide as well. Starting off with OutSystems UI. Now, again, if you worked with OutSystems before, OutSystems UI wouldn't be something that is new to you. However, a very brief definition of OutSystems UI is it's a framework. It's a UI framework that OutSystems put together, OutSystems developed, and is available in all reactive web applications, which allow you to very quickly build user interfaces within your app. And OutSystems UI is really one of the main reasons why you can build applications as quick as you could in OutSystems, because of all the pre-built layouts and templates and components and widgets and themes that OutSystems provide out of the box. Now, when you create an OutSystems application, by default, you'll be utilizing OutSystems UI. And OutSystems UI, like I said, contains a lot of these pre-built components that you can just simply drag into your screens in Service Studio. However, OutSystems UI also has components within OutSystems UI framework, also have the ability to be very heavily customized as well if you wanted to. So an example I can give here is we have this tab layout or let tab component that again provided out of the box by OutSystems UI. And if we wanted to go with a simpler approach, or we're happy with the design that OutSystems UI provides out of the box, we can stick with that. However, that does not mean you cannot further extend it or you can further enhance it with your own design language. And this is what we're looking at the right-hand side over here, where this is exactly the same tabs component that you get out of the box, however, enhanced and extended to match the design language of the organization that we're working with here. So there is a lot of opportunity to further customize where you get out of the box from OutSystems UI to make it match your design language. Now, what does that mean from a lifestyle perspective and from an application perspective? Let me bring this into full screen here so it's a little bit more manageable. When we start working with lifestyle guides, typically there would be one application in your OutSystems environment, and we would be consolidating all of the components that will later end up in this application inside our style guide, whether that's, again, our widgets, our components, our typography, icons, etc. But if we're working with an environment that is ever growing, so whether that's large number of applications or even one application but has a lot of modules, what we tend to find is if we wanted to ensure that the design language is mimicked across all the applications we have, a lifestyle guide becomes something that's critical. And the way we do it is it all starts with OutSystems UI, as we previously mentioned. Using the built-in OutSystems UI framework, we build our custom theme. That theme references the OutSystems UI theme, and that's something that's done by default, by the way. When you create an OutSystems application, a theme, an application theme is created, and it references OutSystems UI as its base theme. In this particular example, we're calling it a corporate theme. And the reason why we're calling it a corporate theme, because we want to illustrate the fact that this theme can extend throughout the different applications we've got in our environment. So in this particular example, we've got 4 applications, and we want all of these applications to follow the same look and feel as each other because it's all one brand, it's all one customer, so one brand. We want to ensure a seamless experience between those applications, especially if the user is expected to flow throughout those applications, to jump between those applications for specific use cases, right? So ensuring that they experience the same look and feel, given that's all within that one organization, is critical. So we have this corporate theme. We also have a corporate library, which means we've got these reusable business agnostic components that we have and can reuse in any of our applications. And as you can imagine, the more number of components our library has, the easier it's going to be to continue building and expanding our existing applications, or even build new applications out of those components. All right, now where does the specialization come into play? Let's say for application 1, it's got a slightly different audience, maybe a slightly different use case. You might have an internal application, for example, versus an external application. And the theme or the look and feel you want to go for is a little bit different than the rest of the applications. That's where you can have app-specific themes. And in this particular example for application 1, we've got an app 1 theme. And this app 1 theme leverages our corporate theme. So our corporate theme is our base theme for this specific theme over here. And remember, OutSystems UI is the base theme of that as well. So it inherits all of these capabilities. And what we can do is we can add another layer of styling on top of our corporate theme to suit application 1. Our application 2 can continue utilizing corporate theme here and utilize the kind of core defined components like any other application we have got in our environment. However, because of the specific use case of targeting application 1 with specific UI requirements, we've extended that and have that stored in our app 1 theme. And this pattern can be extended, of course. You can have an app 2 theme, an app 3 theme, etc. However, as long as you have a core foundational layer where you have your corporate theme and corporate widgets defined, you can then extend on top of that to tailor to the use cases that you've got. Right. So this is how an architecture that revolves around themes, lifestyle guides, typically looks like. What I actually wanted to do is I wanted to showcase a lifestyle guide that we've put together to demo this this example. So this lifestyle guide they're looking at is the same one that was referenced in Matt's video. And a note on lifestyle guides, actually, before I jump into this demo, lifestyle guides do not have a specific standard one-way approach that works for all use cases. Now, there are great starting points to build out your lifestyle guide, and one that comes to mind immediately is the lifestyle guide that you can find in the Forge, which is supported by OutSystems. Of course, you can download that and you can customize that on top. On top of it, in this specific example, this lifestyle guide is kind of built from scratch. However, does not mean that it's incorrect, or the other one means that it's correct. Different use cases might require different components to be included within the lifestyle guide. Hence, it's going to depend on the use case at hand. Now, what we're looking at over here is a collection of components that we've used in not only one application, in more than one application for this particular client, in order to achieve this seamless look and feel and have this design language ripple throughout their applications. The first thing we're looking at here is the typography, so defining the different headings that you would find in your application, the fonts, the colors, and of course the CSS styles that go with those headings. And this way, developer will be able to go in, and if I wanted to use, for example, heading 3, I would use the heading 3 class. Now, this is a very simple example because as OutSystems developers would normally know that heading 3 is in heading 3 would result in heading 3 style. So utilizing this specific class here might not be a great example, but as you see when we go through the different pages, there are more specific classes that might be more useful to reference as well. If we jump into tiles, now the specific design language that this customer has gone with revolves around tiles and cards. Hence, we've got a dedicated page in our lifestyle guide just for tiles and for different options and variants that the tiles can take the shape of within the applications itself. And we've experimented with a tile that's 100%, a tile that's 50%, to 30%, etc. And even injecting some of the business concepts inside those tiles, also to have a look at what they would potentially look like for a customer in the application itself. I wanted to pause here real quick and mention one great benefit of having a lifestyle guide in OutSystems is that since it's an OutSystems application behind the scenes, it also leverages the same mobile responsiveness that you'd expect from a mobile application from OutSystems UI. So if I was to resize this screen, you would see that all the components on my screen actually react and update to reflect the responsiveness that I'm looking for. Again, incredibly useful here when we're trying to envision how specific components are going to look like in specific pages. We can refer to this over here. Or when UI or UX designers are trying to envision what a new page would look like in their designs, they can also refer to this style guide. Let's jump back to full screen. And so this specific page targets specifically tiles and the possibilities that we can do with tiles. One other thing also to note here is the reusability of those components. So, for example, at the top here, we've got an empty tile with just a label inside of it. And this empty tile would be something that you'd find in your library module, if you recall the previous diagram. But then if I wanted to utilize that in my application, for example, I would utilize that same tile. So this specific component here actually uses the same tile web block, and this web block has a placeholder inside of it, which then allows us to populate it with the following context. So the reusability of those components become extremely important. And the real benefit of this is, let's say we've got a slight design change and we wanted to, let's say, make the borders pointed rather than rounded. As long as we update the key component or the key tile web block, then this is going to ripple throughout the application, and all my tiles with the application is going to follow that same design language. So that's the key utilization of this specific approach. All right. If we jump into patterns, similar concept here, and we've got a little bit more CSS class definitions over here, and that's what I was referring to previously in terms of there might be some classes that might be intuitive, others might not be, and that's why it's important to document them all in your style guide. So buttons with the progression bars, we've got graphs as well over here. So all of these components that you see here are available in one place or the other in one of our applications for this specific customer. Again, consolidating all of them here in one single place. Finally, I just wanted to really quickly touch on icons. And this might seem like a simple icon page, which lists all of the icons, which is useful by itself, because a lot of the times developers might not know, or even UI designers might not know what icons might be available, and having them all listed out here makes it easier to pick and choose which ones we want to utilize for our screens. But in this specific example, we've got a requirement to enrich the OutSystems applications to make it white label friendly. Excuse me. And to define real quickly what white label means, it means utilizing the exact same application that we've got and tailor it to different design languages or themes at the same time. So let's say, for example, I'm organization A, and this is my theme over here with the red, for example, as my primary color. If I'm organization B, I want to be able to log into the same application, same build. However, I want my primary color to be green, for example, and have my application react to that and tailor all of the screens to follow my branding. Now, in this specific page, we've built this capability where, let's say I was talking about green here. Let's say I choose a green color, and we can see how the icons reflect that. Again, this is something that might be specifically unique to the specific use case. However, it is something that's been incredibly beneficial for us to include in the style guide, because we want to ensure that we have the ability to view all the different possibilities that not only would the main organization require, but also the white labeling organization as well. And this is where this kind of tool comes into play to showcase that flexibility for the specific icons. That's the extent of the demo. That's what I wanted to show. I'll be dropping a link in the Google Meets here chat to the OutSystems style guide in the Forge for you to have a look at. It is also an extremely feature-rich style guide, because it includes a lot of the components that you'd find inside OutSystems UI by default, and then have the ability to play around with those and experiment with those. So I'll drop that over here. I will stop sharing my screen, and I'm gonna hand over to my friend Robbie to walk us through some UX concepts.
Thank you, Osama, for walking us through the design system. A key note to kind of take away from that is design systems is a very complex process as well. So that's also a very interesting topic that we could dive into maybe in the next round. But for today, what I'll be focusing on is just talking about what is the UX landscape. Some of the things that I'll be covering today, they're just a few slides on methodologies that we do practice here at Phoenix. And within the design chapter, it's just how we look at exploring the user's needs and in applying the best practices that we can. Now, some of these methodologies you may or may not know when it comes into the industry of how user experience design is used across the organization, that brings delight to their customers. So for this section, there will be two sections that I'll be talking about. The first will be the UX landscape and how we define the ground. That's followed by improving your information architecture, and then how is design used with system in mind. The second part of this will be following a little bit more on the design activities that we do and how we use that with a real use case, and understanding the value that it brings that bridges the product together to bring delight for the customer. Let me click onto the next one. Excellent. All right. Okay, so we're just going to do a little bit of a history here and just talk a little bit about the first sort of user experience that kind of came into the turn of the century with Henry Ford. He pretty much observed how workers were producing cars and contributed to implementing a profit-sharing system that understood how users were working with their tools and the agility of delivering the products that he was working at the time. From this, is that a question? Oh, no, okay. From this, Toyota found interest in this. And the reason they found so much interest in this is because they were looking at how to optimize that human interaction with technology. And this essentially was the agile approach that Toyota practiced and what is now currently delivered today. Next screen. Now, one of the founding fathers that I'll be talking about here is Don Norman, who pretty much coined the term user experience. And he was working at Apple, but not as a designer. At the time, he actually was an electrical engineer and a cognitive science by trade. When he worked at Apple, his entire process was understanding, the user experience, engaging with the product. So it goes more than just understanding the users. It's about the entire experience. And I don't know who here is an Apple user. I feel like there might be less Apple users than Androids, but let's just bring it into opening up a product, from whatever is your favorite. And that entire experience, from peeling the sticker to then opening it, all that is literally coined and understood by one person. And he pretty much helped shape that experience. There was a book that he also wrote called The Design of Everyday Things. And that's also a really good book to kind of get an idea of what user experience is and pretty much what the essence is that kind of connects all the pieces together. Now, this shocking landscape is pretty much around all the methodologies that we have here at as user experience designers. I'm not going to cover all of this because it is a lot, but what we need to just see is, we've got the information architecture, and there are things around there that we do touch on. There's heuristic and usability. And again, there are other methodologies that we can do around this. And then there's interface and interaction design, followed by research. So all of these things we take into consideration with user experience design, but we don't do all of these. If we did all of these, I think a project and the budget would be blown out and clients would just be going, where what's going on? So what we do here at Phoenix is we've kind of selected the best approaches when it comes to understanding what the client is looking for. So we try to match the client's needs and the budgets, and we wanted to ensure that we're achieving the best possible outcome. Here, we can see that we have user strategy, user research, UX design, UI and interaction design. And this is where user experience and user interface design meets. And this is what we practice. And this is pretty much some of the methodologies that we do here at Phoenix. Before I continue on, does anybody have any questions? I'll take silent as golden. And also you can put the any questions that you may have inside the, look at me being like I'm an influencer or a YouTuber. Just put a message in the comment below. All righty. Look, we're just going to continue on. And next slide. So UX is really all about that software power. And what that means is bringing the power into the user's hands. How do we achieve that? It's by defining the ground. And what does that mean? It pretty much means evaluating, that went the wrong way, evaluating your current stage. And that's achieved through heuristics. Now, heuristics is something that I'll slightly cover, but it is a very important fundamental piece that we actually do here as designers. We're going to be talking about another founding father here, which is Jakob Nielsen. And he has a very important book called Usability Experiencing. But it's very important to understand that usability experience, it plays a big role within UX design. And some of the methodologies here with heuristics, it really combines understanding some basic principles on delivering meaningful and usable products. But heuristics in itself should be also combined with a business analyst, a product owner, a developer alongside the designer. And the reason why we need to be working hand in hand is because we end up collecting analysis and we end up having a way to benchmark the product that we're looking to release into the market. And another very important part of this is the section of user experience, which is the Holy Grail. So this guy built a very meaningful framework and practice for us that we do as designers. Now, what I'm showing here is pretty much just what the 10 main principles are when it comes to, well, it's 10 main principles and rule of thumb to measure usability within a user interface. Some of these points that I won't cover all of these here, but you can have a little read. Some of the big ones are visibility of system status, error prevention, and aesthetics and minimalist design. Now, we're covering something that is very deep and can be quite technical. So what I wanted to do is kind of just show an example of how heuristics is done. And within Phoenix, we've taken the 10 principles here, and we wanted to dive deeper into the cracks of the product to kind of understand where is there an opportunity for the product to grow, understand where the user might be handling some issues, maybe like not understanding where they've come from or where they go to the next button or where is the button. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and share another tab with delicious examples of a heuristic valuation. So while that's sharing, excellent. So from those 10 main principles, we've refined what we want to do and what we're trying to achieve here. This is done by pretty much assessing certain areas of those principles to onboarding, task orientation, navigation, and information architecture, which is something that we'll be covering in a moment, trust and credibility, page layout, visual design, and help and feedback and error tolerance. Now, this is a very great exercise to do with those key stakeholders that I mentioned. So the business analyst, the product owner. And what we tend to do is, we have a set of questions that we go through and we give it a score, whether it's true or false. Depending if it's true or false, and the question may be very specific to the product and also on the device, whether it's desktop, tablet, or mobile. We put a score against it, and if there's anything that needs to be taken away, that is then commented. And what we do is we synthesize all this information and we pretty much put it into something that's digestible and easier for the user to understand, well, the user being the client, and just really measure out what is the most critical part of the user experience that we need to be focusing on, what are the areas that we could improve, and then what are the nice to haves. And when you work on a project, there's a lot of nice to haves, but to focus on the right areas, we benchmark that principle. We make sure that we're looking at, is it usable? Is there error prevention on there? Can the user navigate themselves around their information architecture? And it's very fascinating when you do this assessment with stakeholders. They get to see the other side of user experience design. So it's very exciting stuff. Now I'm going to switch back to the presentation. What is information architecture? Information architecture is pretty much the arrangement of content that shows up on the screen to make it readable and for the user to be able to navigate. Now I'm going to be talking about some key activities that we do and bring in those real, just going to change to the other color, bring in those real use cases again to some of the practices and our approaches. So for this example, just bearing in mind all the information that I gave you, it's quite a lot to digest, but we're now going to put into a real use case here. And for this use case, we're going to be using Certus CX. Now, the objective of this project was working with a lot of complex systems. The client had lots of needs, lots of systems, lots of legacy systems too that needed to communicate on a multi-channel of understanding the request for a security guard to making sure that they've been authenticated correctly, ensuring that that security guard has all the correct credentials. So you don't want to send the wrong person to, if he's just a security guard and you send him to be a bodyguard, he may not have that qualification. So the system really tried to, map out lots of turning parts here. And the goal was pretty much to just provide that kind of seamless experience. That seamless experience was across, again, some of those very specific user groups. And these user groups had very strong needs. We needed to really get into the mindset of what they needed for this dashboard to work for them. What were their kind of key main drivers? And, and to have a conversation with, with stakeholders, you really need to map out what is the underlying issue here? Where is the opportunity that we can dive into? And then understand, the complexity of the system. Since this has been launched, we're currently running 2,300 new onboarding on the platform. So from their old dashboard system, which was very heavy on, it was cognitive overload, lots of things to take into consideration here, lots of buttons and a mixture of a design system and lifestyle guide here would have benefit a lot for this experience, to give that kind of simplicity, making sure that the system is visible, that the user understands how to navigate around the information architecture. So empathy mapping was one exercise that we did with our stakeholders. Now, what was interesting about doing empathy mapping, now when I say stakeholders, we're talking about product managers, product owners, very technical designers, developers, very senior developers, and then the actual users of the product. So people within compliance, people within operations, and the people who recruited the security guards to go on to a shift. When we were doing this exercise, it was really fascinating to kind of pick up some of the key things that people were saying about the, what they would want to see in the application, how do they feel about certain parts about it, because within what we see here, we have a lot of pains and a lot of gains that's focused on the user. So we really focus on targeting what the user needs and understanding the best way to approach that. One of the interesting outputs of this was when we were doing the exercise, we had a very senior developer, after the session, but before the session, we explained what we're doing. And she was just like, I don't understand why we're doing this. This makes no sense. And then when we finished the session, she was like, okay, that was interesting. Yeah, cool. I actually enjoyed that a lot. And things like that, they come through, making those strategic workshops, as I mentioned. And we've got the UX column, that identifies key things that we do and how we practice to find the right solution. And then we've got the user interface design that also follows other ways that we can explore, design systems and topography and all the aesthetics that deliver that kind of beautiful end product. Now, the things that come from doing an empathy mapping, it's very focused on gathering those user insights, understanding where the problem is, and above all, it's collaboration, right? It's all about alignment and understanding how the current product is, where there is an opportunity to expand, and from this, we're able to then develop these personas, and these personas then shape how we can interact with this product. So there's a myth that you are the user. We are not the users of this product, and there is a good approach to understanding how you engage with the product, especially when it's with very strong stakeholders. You need to get into the mindset of who they are, what they do on a daily basis, because if we think about our environment holistically, there are many things that are happening on a day-to-day basis: emails, phone calls, then you got work, and then there's a lot of moving parts. So to understand those pain points and those gains and what they're thinking and saying, that's going to encapsulate understanding who that persona is, and then that can drive how we can go into the next phase, which is understanding how we can shape that information architecture. Now, one of the exercises we did with empathy mapping was DoGo mapping. And essentially what we're doing here, it's a scalable information architecture tool. It identifies the state where you are looking to connect certain parts to the actual product. So for the example of Certus, there was, again, lots of legacy systems and lots of processes that we needed to follow. But to map that all out, we did this exercise with our stakeholders, because they're going to know the product better than what we do. And that collaboration, that teamwork, helps define, okay, so we know that the home is going to go here, and this is going to do this, and this is going to do this. What the do does is sets the current, and the go is the desired state. Now, this is just an example of how that kind of may look. This is a very simple version of what the DoGo mapping kind of looks, but it bridges the gap between the two. So what the user might be going is, okay, I'm going to go on the homepage, and what do I need to do? They may need to go into, the resource contractors. They may need to now set up a security guard. The security guard will need to go into compliance. They may need to go into operations, and they might need to wait to be approved, or they've been rejected. And then there's a whole process behind that. So DoGo mapping was really an essential part. And again, we're talking about heuristics here. So it's understanding that end-to-end solution here for a very strong product. And this is what we have today. So it controls what we see now on the screen for the user to engage with. We have clear, distinct areas where the user can see, okay, there is something for me to be aware of. There are some potential unassigned security guards, or there may be an applicant that is waiting to be confirmed or waiting to be approved by the ops team. So taking the empathy mapping and Dougal mapping exercise, we were able to pretty much build this landscape, very complex landscape, and understand the mind of how we can, improve that user experience for Certus. That is my presentation for today.
Thank you, Robert. That was wonderful, really informative presentation. And thank you, Osama, as well. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much. Just give a hand to our presenters, Osama and Robbie. That was really informative and really well presented. We can't do these things without content, and we're thankful that we have such great content. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight, for spending this time, which you'd probably prefer to spend with your families or on Netflix. And we will see you next time. Thanks very much.